Energy's up. Energy's up. I don't know if you want to bring it down or...
Energy's up. Energy. No, I think it'll be up in this one. I think this is more of an up one because it's more historical anyway.
All right.
So we're going in the time machine. So gas that baby up.
Didn't expect me to have some gas on me, did you?
No, I really didn't. I was very surprised. Edwin came prepared today.
Welcome to Scary Mystery Surprise,
where we talk about scary things that surprised us around the internet.
I'm Edwin.
I'm Michelle. All right, here we go.
I forgot your sound effects.
Here we are in 1922. Dun, dun, dun.
In the middle of a depression?
No, that's the 30s.
Oh, my bad.
Edwin.
You're the history person. Okay.
Yeah, I am. But thank God I am, because my God, we're in the depression. No, Edwin, it's the Roaring 20s. We're having a great time during this time.
Okay, because we're bringing up the energy. So I'm like, what? Okay.
So, Edwin, how do you feel about the Pharaoh's curse?
The Pharaoh's curse?
Yeah, in Egypt.
Oh, it's real. Duh. Are you asking if I think it's real or fake or just in general thoughts?
I'm just, your general thoughts on it.
I think it's creepy in the Indiana Jones type of thing when you view it like that.
Because today we're talking about the curse, the Pharaoh's curse of Tutankhamun. Or King Tut to the layman's. Or King Tut to the...
King Tut?
King Tut to the AI descriptor. Kept calling him King Tut, so I'm not quite sure.
Toot as in fart?
Yeah, like Toot. I was like, King Tut.
In that sense, the Indiana Jones sense, it's creepy. Like the curse of...
Yeah.
I remember being really creeped out by that movie and even that ride. Universal Studios or whatever.
Oh, yeah, of course. I love that ride. It's not it's at Disneyland.
It's at Disneyland?
Yeah, it's at Disneyland.
I don't know what's going on with me today, but...
I don't know. The time machine really messed you up somehow.
It did. It's a cast. Having gasoline here in the booth with me.
Edwin's high from the fumes. But thank God we're in Egypt in 1922 now. Howard Carter was running out of time. And, cue desert music and like
Aladdin style or...
Yeah. He stepped into the Valley of the Kings. The sand whipped up in his face. Lord Carnarvon, his benefactor, had only given him funding for 1 more year. Fair, because in the last 7 years, he'd turned up nothing in the Egyptian desert of archaeological value. A few odds and ends, scraps of linen, shards of pottery. Most of it wasn't much. But many of these items shared something strange in common. They had inscribed a single word, the name of an Egyptian pharaoh whose remains had never been located. Tutankhamun. The clock was ticking. Howard Carter had been exploring the desert for a while. He'd been interrupted by World War I. Totally valid. How are you going to find stuff during World War I? But Carnarvon was over it. He'd called him to his castle or his manor house in... It's not a castle, but weird sidebar fact, it is where Downton Abbey is filmed.
What?
So like whatever it's called.
Wait.
Yeah, like so the Carnarvons actually own that property that Downton Abbey is filmed at.
What? Okay.
Yeah, so Lord Carnarvon lived there at the time, and he was funding Howard Carter.
Okay, so that is kind of a castle.
It is kind of a castle. I mean, it's like, yeah, I'd say one of the most well-known manor houses in England because it's on that show.
Wow.
Yeah, so he lived there in the 20s. But the clock is ticking. Howard's been back in the Valley of the Kings for 3 days. His team was going over the old dig sites near the grounds of previously discovered tombs. He didn't know what he was going to, he's like, let's just start here. And One of Carter's men stumbled over a large piece of rock. Unlike the rest of the loose rocks, this particular chunk was partially buried beneath the sand and the mud. After some digging, it was discovered to be the top of a long staircase that disappeared beneath the ground. The tomb of Tutankhamun, or King Tut, according to AI generators.
Toot.
Can you imagine at some point it will just be AI and they could just change it to King Tut and that could be it? Like no one will know?
I'm pretty sure you could say that to somebody and they just accept it. Like,
yeah, it's like, oh, okay, King Tut.
That's how it spreads.
that is how it all begins. Carter sent word for Lord Carnarvon, and once he arrived, they opened the tomb. When Carter removed the outer door and stepped past the threshold, he became the first human to do so in well over 3,000 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it was the crowning achievement of Carter's career.
So cool. I mean, I get excited when I go to my attic area, and I'm like, wow, I haven't been here in 2 years.
What will I discover? What will I discover today?
I know I put a random box of stuff up there, and I always wonder, I'm like, when am I going to go back up there? I'm just so excited. So I can't imagine what this guy felt.
I mean, this like immortalized him among archaeologists. Like, this is one of the most important finds, like Pompeii, the Rosetta Stone.
Machu Picchu.
Yeah, Machu Picchu, those stone soldiers in China.
Uh-huh.
It's famous. It's a famous thing. Also in the 1920s, it kicked off this big fashion craze too. I mean, this is kind of a sidebar, but like
fashion.
Yeah, fashion. Like there's a bunch of antique jewelry from that time. Like it influenced the way people were dressing because they all became kind of obsessed with Egypt and the desert and pharaohs and stuff. So that's just kind of a sidebar. It's, honestly, I remember that because I'd be at like an antique ball and you'd see all this weird Egyptian jewelry, but it's like all from the 20s. It's not actual Egyptian jewelry. It's from the 20s. It's like knockoffs from the 20s. So
that influential. That's really cool.
So the tomb itself was packed almost bursting with 5,000 priceless artifacts, including a dismantled chariot, finely carved figurines, priceless jewelry, ancient weapons, and one standard issue Egyptian mummy with 3 sarcophaguses in kind of a nested. It was like a sarcophagus nested within a sarcophagus, nested within a sarcophagus. So 3 sarcophaguses. One which was made out of solid gold.
Wow.
I know. And so this became a worldwide sensation. But what's really funny is Tutankhamun wasn't important at all in his own time. I mean, like as pharaohs go, like, it would be, I wrote this thing that said, joke. This would be like if people only remember William Henry Harrison, who was our 9th president and died after just 31 days after his inauguration in 1841.
What?
Like if that became our most famous president. I mean, because Tutankhamun arguably is the most famous pharaoh now. And it's just because not because they built the pyramids, not because he did anything during his reign. He died when he was 19. He did nothing.
If that guy wasn't important, and imagine the ones that were, they probably had...
I know. And in fact, I was doing research and there's like comparisons because, so like his tomb was not disturbed. Like that's what makes it so spectacular. But it's a cramped little tomb. And then a lot of the artifacts have his mom or his dad's name on it instead, because Tutankhamun apparently died so suddenly that they didn't have time to do burial, like a correct burial. Apparently he's like, his mummy's missing like his heart, which is really actually a really important organ that they would have left intact. Like there's a bunch of things that are not right about this that feel very rushed. Like
they just threw a bunch of stuff together. They're just like...
Yeah, like they just threw a bunch of stuff because he just died so young. Also, I wrote, he suffered from a curse of his own, crippling small gene pool, because he was very inbred because his parents were brother and sister. And
what?
The pharaohs like to keep it in the family. So he was like born with a club foot. He had a bunch of like physical deformities and like possible mental stuff as well. Like it wasn't great. It wasn't great. Obviously.
He was cursed.
Yeah, he was cursed. In his own way. Yes, he was cursed. He was.
I feel bad for him now.
Oh, geez. Bring the energy down. Oh, okay. But now we have to get to the dark side. The dark side of opening the tomb. Woo! Which is why it's on the show. I'm not just here to give you a Howard Carter's.
Here are the presidents of the United States.
Here are the presidents and talk about Howard Carter.
Was it like spider webs, by the way, when they're opening this up? Is it like spider webs and like...
I imagine a lot of dust, but I don't... The thing is like one of the speculative things about the curse is that it would be mold, but it's not like a damp area, is it? Like, I don't think it's the desert. Like, so there's not going to be a lot of mold there. So, but yeah, that is one of those theories, but...
I like to imagine it with like an eternal flame in there too. It's just like...
Of course, like you open it and for some reason they just light up. Kind of like The Mummy, kind of like Brendan Fraser's The Mummy, which everyone should just go and rewatch just because it's that enjoyable.
Multiple times. It's a really good movie.
Multiple times. It's so good. There's our SEO word, Brendan Fraser. Fraser, whatever. Okay. All right, back to the curse. Because from the moment they stepped inside the pharaoh's tomb, rumors began to spread that the Carters, why did I write that? That the Carter, the Carters is Beyonce and...
Sorry, I'm just thinking of the president now.
Which one? Oh, Jimmy Carter? Now Jimmy Carter opened the tomb and now it's... Luckily at this taping, Jimmy Carter's still alive, so he's still fair game. Okay. Rumors began to spread that Howard Carter's actions had unleashed a terrible curse from beyond the grave that would be dished out to all that disturbed the long-dead pharaoh. The first life snuffed out by this curse of Tutankhamun was taken on the very same day that the tomb was discovered. Howard Carter's canary. It was stationed in a birdcage hanging outside of his door, and its entire demise served as an appropriate warning of danger about things to come. His canary was attacked by a king cobra, and a messenger boy stumbled upon the scene, but, the cobra had the canary in its mouth, and there was nothing they could do. It died. But weirdly enough, one of the symbols of pharaohs is a cobra. And in the tomb itself are statues of Tutankhamun wearing a crown with a cobra in the center.
Wow.
So, I don't know. It's like Omen 101. It's like Bad Omen 101.
That's an omen. Yeah, that's an omen for sure.
Yeah, it's like, and also the fact that a canary is like we're usually a symbol for something going wrong, like when the canary in the coal mine, that kind of symbolism.
Mm-hmm. You're gonna die. You're running out of oxygen. Get out of there. Get out of there. That's the message. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. But of course, Carter and his men were made of sterner stuff. You don't make money grave digging in Egypt by being superstitious. So that's just a fact.
Very true. Very true.
But while a few whispered about a possible curse, most were certain it was just an unfortunate coincidence. And it may have been. We know where this is going. It didn't save Lord Carnarvon, because it started with nothing more than a mosquito bite on the cheek. And something that's kind of annoying. You're scratching it. It's a summer evening. It's annoying. No big deal. Which is probably what Lord Carnarvon thought at the time. But then he nicked it with his razor. And that gave him blood poisoning. And he was dead within a few days.
What?
Yeah.
You can die from that?
Blood poisoning? Yeah. He was dead within 2 weeks of blood poisoning. And that was just 4 months after they opened the tomb. So... it was another spooky coincidence. And when they did an autopsy on King Tutankhamun's body, they found that there was a strange lesion on his face in the place where Lord Carnarvon had cut his cheek.
What? Okay, so the cobra,
the cobra, the cheek. Yeah. And Lord Carnarvon wasn't old. He was just 56 years old, he wasn't super elderly. But with the cobra and Lord Carnarvon, rumors went nuts. Headlines in newspapers. I mean, obviously, the world is already nuts about King Tut anyway, so they're a curse. Oh,
it's happening.
Yeah, but then the deaths just kept coming. In May 1923, George J. Gold succumbed to he was a financier of the project. He succumbed to a fever that he contracted while he was in Egypt. And he began to show symptoms not long after visiting the tomb of Tooting. Oh, God, of King Tut.
I know, but I always imagined it like King Tutankhamun, or something like that.
Yeah, of course. You have to command it.
And instead it's like King Tut.
King Tut, which seems more fitting.
We're going to get cursed, Michelle. You got to watch out for this.
I know. We are going to get cursed. Well, we'll see. I'll get to that. Another man who had worked on the expedition died of arsenic poisoning, which was really random. And then Carter's personal secretary died a year after that, being smothered in his sleep at a posh club in Mayfair. And the assailant was never caught. I'm sorry to laugh, but it's just like that's so random where he's smothered to death.
What?
I don't know. I feel like there's more to that story, and there's not. They're not discussing it.
I don't know why I'm imagining like something else going on.
Yeah, like you can't not. Like there's obviously more to the story, but it's the curse that got him. Clearly. So as those who were connected to Carter and his excavation continued to drop like flies, people began to speculate as to what was behind the death, and the papers spoke of a written curse scrawled across the wall of Tutankhamun's tomb. Even Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote Sherlock Holmes, do you know him? He had his own theory, and he speculated that the tomb had invisible elemental guards, which I love that he threw elementals in there as a paranormal person, that were left to defend the long dead pharaoh, which I love. I love it as a theory. I'm just like, please, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle is the best. It did seem like Carter and his team were being targeted by something. So the question is, what became of the man himself, Howard Carter? Because, I mean, if this curse were real, he's the one that, like, stepped in there, did it first, disturbed it first, became very famous off of it. What happened to him? I mean, he's the one that's responsible for disturbing the peace. So he died of Hodgkin's lymphoma at the age of 64, 16 years after opening the tomb.
Did he kill everybody? Has anybody thought of this?
I mean, that's a good question. Is he a serial killer?
Yeah, because what if they found a lot of money in there or some secret that only he wanted to know?
I mean, they definitely found a lot of money in there. They definitely
and I mean,
did.
How hard could it be to just send a mosquito to bite somebody?
He trained mosquitoes
and cobras.
And cobras. And he sacrificed his own canary. And that's how deep this goes. This is like the deepest conspiracy that we're outing right now.
He hired a hitman to smother somebody.
Yeah, I know. It's so random. It's so random. Yeah. There's also a story, and I didn't write this in there, but there's someone, like, once the mummy got to the museum, there was like someone who was like, I don't know, organizing the exhibit and went out and got hit by a car or something like that too. Like got hit by there's like weird deaths. There's weird deaths.
Wow.
But Howard Carter was untouched by whatever the curse angle. It just seems like if there was a real curse, you'd get him. But which kind of throws the whole mummy's curse thing into doubt anyway, because in fact, of all the 58 people known to have been present at the tomb when it was first opened, only 8 died within the next 12 years. So
it's not real.
It's not real. And then paranormal skeptic James Randi, he's like a well-known skeptic, actually did the math and was like, average, everyone around that, just average, like if you average all their ages and like when they died, the average age of death was 73.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, so like people actually did well. Like maybe it was a longevity. Maybe it was
I always believed that it was true. Like it was a curse because of all the strange deaths that you hear.
Oh yeah, of course.
Now it's like, okay, if only 8 people died.
Yeah, only 8 people died. And granted, some of that was strange, but I think that would happen at any... You could probably make that statement about anything,
Yep.
you know, like at any event, a certain amount of people are going to die after
Yep.
it. But here's some theories about where the curse might have come from, the idea of the curse. This is probably it. So Lord Carnarvon needed to recoup money from investing in fucking Howard Carter for 7 to 8 years and getting nothing but pottery shards. So when they finally found the tomb, he sold the rights to reporting about the story and like taking photos of it to the Times London. And so they were the only newspaper allowed on the dig site, allowed to photograph, document, give them any information. So that left all the other newspapers in England making up shit.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so they just decided to like, especially like if anybody died, like just anything, they just blew it up. Historically, while some Egyptian tombs did indeed have curses scribbled on the walls, King Tut's did not have one scribbled on the walls. There's nothing there. And actually, the legend of the Pharaoh's curse actually predates when we're able to read hieroglyphs. It was before we found the Rosetta Stone. People would start, like Louisa May Alcott wrote a story about mummies in a curse. So like that's before we found the Rosetta Stone.
We have to do something about the Rosetta Stone. That's interesting.
Yeah, the Rosetta Stone had some weird deaths around it too. So like that's interesting. But also, this is just a weird fact. Pharaoh's tombs were guarded. So why would they need a curse? Tombs that had curses written on the walls, and there were some, were of lower gentry, of people that didn't have guards 24/7, didn't have like...
This is the next best thing. It's like we should do that instead of security cameras.
Yeah, I'll just do a graffiti curse on the wall here, and it'll protect my body for the rest of eternity.
Yeah.
Done.
Instead of like, you don't need to protect yourself. Don't carry firearms. Just here's a curse. There you go. And I had thought of a way to protect the house is to put this creepy like doll in the front.
Oh yeah.
Imagine just something in the front yard that would just creep someone out like a ghost. That would work in some places, I think.
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah, make it look as creepy as possible. Although you might attract the people who are like, oh, that place is like run down. I'm going to break in or something like that. Like you get the
doll I know keeps my sister when she visits. It keeps her out of the studio area because so it works.
Well, I mean, it's good, I guess.
My cousin doesn't come in here because of that too.
Oh, all right. Well, I mean, interesting. Strange. I mean, those people don't sound like they're hindrances to your life, but I mean, it's good that you keep them out of your space.
I'm not trying to. The dog does that.
Right.
But yeah, okay, so that makes sense. So instead of guards, by the way, were guards like hired until they die, or like what's the deal?
Yeah, isn't that weird? Yeah, of course. Well, because so I was looking this up because I was like, I don't know, this stuff is kind of interesting, but yeah, the guards would be, it would be like tasked to them, like generationally tasked. So like you'd be like your son would be a guard as well. And then when a pharaoh dies, they're actually speaking to the gods on your behalf. So it's like an incentive. Like they're still like working for their people once they die. So they're doing their work. So it would be kind of an incentive to take care of them. Like it'd be an honor, I think. I think like in theory, it would be an honor.
I can see that.
Oh, and just even a little more debunking. Lord Carnarvon was arguably the most unusual death, right? Like, because he died of blood poisoning from a mosquito bite. But he wasn't in the best health. He'd been in a car accident in 1903, and he'd never really regained his physical health after that. So, and in fact, why he was interested in Egyptian tombs and how Howard Carter got his money from him is that a doctor had been like, don't spend winters in England, go to a warm country. And so Lord Carnarvon had gone to Egypt and gotten all amateur archaeologist which is what old rich people did back then, is go become an archaeologist.
Just like it's like today's golf, I guess.
Yeah, but they just went to Egypt and stole artifacts and mummies. Narvin was killed by a mosquito bite simply because his immune system was weak and he couldn't fight off an infection.
That sucks. That's a really bad way to die, man. Like,
oh, yeah, of course.
Bite.
And what's really kind of funny is that, you know how they said that Tutankhamun had the mark on his face where Lord Carnarvon had died? Nobody actually remembers what side Lord Carnarvon got bit on. And by the time they had done the autopsy on King Tut, Lord Carnarvon had been dead for months, so they're not going to dig him up and
just to look at his bite.
And look at his face. Look at his, yeah. And so nobody knows. There's no way to actually know if that's true or not. So
dying from shaving, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, it wasn't exactly clean back then. They're not exactly in a pristine environment.
It's just sad. It's just a sad way to die, man.
It is. But honestly, the only victim of this curse, I think, that truly exists, the only real victim was the canary.
Yeah.
Like, that was the biggest omen on the whole planet. Like, that was just a cobra eating a canary. That is just like...
Poor thing. It was just there.
It didn't deserve it. It didn't deserve it.
Poor canary. That guy could have been named Tut. That fits him. Tut.
Yeah. King Tut. King Tut killed that canary. And you can tell he did that. I think it's pretty obvious he did that. But everything else, I don't think so. And also there's like a weird fact that like he's kind of like jammed into these sarcophagus. Like he's jammed into the solid gold sarcophagus, which is pretty rare too. Like he's... Like, it's just weird. It's just weird. Like, he wasn't meant, like, it feels like, historically, these might not have been meant for him.
Just like, it's like a hand-me-down from, like, his older brother or something.
Yeah, it's like, it seems like that. Like, there are things that just don't seem right. And, like, in the autopsies, they can't tell what killed him. But obviously, he wouldn't have lived very long because he had all these things wrong with him anyway. But it just seems like he might have died so suddenly, like in an accident.
Poor guy, man. Poor guy.
Poor guy. But he is one of the most famous people on Earth now. I mean, King Tut.
Yeah. So he's got that going for him. More
famous than any other. Yeah. I mean, I think more so than the people that like built the pyramids, like Ramses the second. I don't know which one. There's so many Ramses. I don't know which one's which.
Poor guy. That's... What can we do? I mean,
his curse only works on birds.
Yeah.
I mean, disappointing.
But yeah. Cool. It kind of sucks, though, that the curse is not real. Like, that's...
Yeah. I did find a story about an actual cursed tomb, and it was some tomb in Poland. It was a king in Poland, and people disturbed his tomb, and 12 people disturbed his tomb, and 10 of them died.
Oh, wow.
Like, pretty quickly. Like, 4 of them were dead within, like, days. But it turned out it was a mold. There was a moldy fungus in his tomb, and when they cracked it, it released all the spores.
Oh, no. Okay. I was going to say that definitely met the curse threshold. 10 out of 12, but...
Also, what a great curse to be like, let's put these spores in here. So, like, if anybody disturbs well, they wouldn't know what spores were, but they'd be like, let's put these plants in here. So if anybody disturbs the tomb, it'll be like, whoosh.
So what are we going to talk about next week, Michelle?
I don't know, but I think it'll be a surprise.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Let's go. Okay. Bye.
Bye.